Meeting has started recording for you. I think you're still on mute. Who's the chairperson?
Vicky's still on mute.
There you go, Vicky. I think you're off now.
All the background stuff.
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. You're on the town council meeting for Tuesday, May 26th. We're opening up our town council meeting with a public hearing for an ordinance appropriating $2,500,000 for the cost related to the design and construction of a backup well for the Southington Water Department. I'm going to turn it over to our town manager, Mark Shota, to begin the public hearing. Mark?
Madam Chair, Bill Casarella comes on between. He could cover for me, but this is an ordinance for $2.5 million. Bill did explain this to us when we sent it to the Board of Finance during its original introduction. This is for a backup well, which is going to be well 10. As Bill mentioned during the first time he was in front of you, it's important that they maintain their ability to serve Southington and the water needs of Southington. Just from a financial standpoint, although the town runs the bond through its process, the monies themselves are not paid for by the taxpayers per se. They're paid for by the rate users of the water department. So therefore, technically, although it runs through the town, this bond ordinance is not something that's paid for by the general taxpayers. So that's why it's a little different than our normal bonds. But in this particular case, the process is still the same. It is still the town of Southington running it through. The only difference is on the bond itself, it says that the ratepayers for the town of Southington pay Southington Water Department pay the costs. Happy to answer any questions if I can.
I want to open it up to the members of the town council for any questions. Anybody, the town council members?
Sounds like Bill Casarella was trying to talk to Tori. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bill, if you want to come on back in and add more, that'll be fine.
No, I just got on and no, Mark explained everything perfect. There's nothing explained. If anybody has some questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, so members of the council, do you have any questions? Paul, can you see? I can't see anybody's hand up. So.
Doesn't look like there's any questions.
Okay, last call for the council. That's it? Anybody? Okay, hearing no questions from the council, I'm going to open it up to the public. If the public has anything to say about this, please indicate it. And Paul will unmute your mic, and you can ask questions on this one issue. Anybody? Do you see any, Paul?
Nope. All the phone call-in users, it looks like there's 6 of them are open. The lines are open. And there's no, if anybody has a question that is on their computer and online, you can type in the chat box in the meeting to let us know that you would like to say something. Otherwise, you can take yourself off mute and talk during the public hearing here.
Sure.
Tom Lombardi did a test question already. Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Hearing no questions from the public, I'm going to close the. Is there someone? Okay. Hearing no questions from the public, I'm going to close this public hearing. We will pick it up during the regular course of our meeting. All right. So let's go right into our regular meeting. We want to welcome everyone to our regular scheduled meeting. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Christopher Palmieri.
Here.
Christopher.
Here.
Paul Czaplinski.
Here.
Michael Del Santo. Valerie DiPaolo. Here. Lee Dietrich.
Here.
Tom Lombardi.
Here.
James Morelli. Victoria Triano.
Present. Mr. Morelli is not yet on. Is he on? I didn't hear his response.
He's having problems connecting.
Morelli's having a hard time logging in. He's trying to log in. He's trying, working feverishly to log in.
Okay, so I expect that he will be with us shortly. So we're just going to continue. Could I ask, Madam Clerk, would you read the prayer for us tonight?
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, may we consider the people of Southington and always render what is right and just for our citizens. Help us to be compassionate and caring for each individual while seeking what is appropriate for the entire community. Give us wisdom and guidance tonight. Amen.
Amen. Would you all stand for the flag salute, please? Mr. Dietrich, would you lead us in the flag salute?
To the flag, United States of
United
America,
States of America, and to the republic for which it
which it
stands,
stands, one
One nation.
under God, indivisible, with
indivisible,
liberty and
and
justice for
justice
all.
for all. Thank you so much. All right, item 2 are the minutes from our last meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Chris Palmieri. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. Is there any discussion about the minutes, any additions or deletions or anything? Hearing none, all those in favor? Let's try that again. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any? Yes.
I'm sorry, it looks like Councilperson Morelli may have just came in. I just wanted to let you know for the record.
Thank you. Welcome,
I want
Jim.
to double check.
Jim, are you there?
Yes, I'm having technical difficulties, but I'm here.
Good to have you in the meeting. Thank you so much. Item 3, councilperson's communication, please. So if you have something, would you just signify, either raise your hand or let Paul know, because I may not see you. So anybody from the council who wants, if you want to share something? Anybody?
Mike Del Santo.
Yep.
So I'm going to give my spiel once again for all of the businesses in town, local and otherwise. Please support them, order gift cards, order dinner, shop in their stores, make future appointments, continue to shop local, support our local. They need us now more than ever.
More than
So
ever.
that's my plea once again. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to let everyone remind everyone to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Good words, especially now. I understand, Councilwoman DiPaolo, do you have something for us tonight?
I do, yes, Madam Chair, thank you. So I'd like to take a moment to publicly thank Kevin Curtis, who recently resigned from the library board. He had been chair of the board for the last 2.5 years, and I had the pleasure of serving with him for a short time before I came onto the council. Kevin's leadership, his passion, and his voice, I believe, will be missed. He not only was a member and chair of the board, but he was also on the advocacy committee and he was on the planning committee. Both of those committees, their goal was working towards a new library. So, on behalf of myself and Councilors Palmieri and Poulos, we just really wanted to thank Kevin, wish him the best, thank his family, and I certainly hope he continues to be a positive voice for the library for our town. Thank you.
Val, you're not only speaking for your side, you're also speaking for all of us. Kevin was really a very bright light in all of that, and we all will miss him, and we certainly hope that it's not the end of his expertise and wisdom. So thank you so much. It's great. Chris Palmieri, you have something?
Yeah, unfortunately, to follow that, tonight, Mary Ellen D'Angelo is on the library board as well.
Oh.
Some issues. She needs to. She a very strong voice. Of the library board. So,
Yes.
by meeting. I want to thank both for the
Yes.
issue.
Oh my goodness. I know Mary Ellen, as long as I remember, she's been on the library board, so it's going to be very different, but we certainly do appreciate her years and years and years of dedicated service. And we'll make sure that we extend that to her formally, but thank you so much. Anybody else? I would personally like to thank our American Legion Kiltonic Post 72 for our annual Memorial Day recognition and a moment on the green. We had a few folks that were there, Mr. Del Santo, Mr. Chaplinsky, Attorney DiPaolo, and myself had the honor of being there. You know, it's difficult for everybody to get there all the time. So, but we were well represented, and I have to tell you, it was quite moving just to be there and see that even in the rain and you know the misty stuff going on, that people still came out to honor those that have given the ultimate sacrifice. So I just wanted to thank American Legion and let them know how much we appreciate their effort to keep the memory of all of those who died for our freedom alive. So I just wanted to say thank you. Yes, Chris.
Madam Chair, can I, and if I could just add to that, in light of what you just said, we're very fortunate in Southington because not only do we have a strong Veterans Committee that's on the town side that really works and does whatever they can for veterans, but especially this time of year, we have a strong Veterans Committee with the Board of Education as well, who do things like the military luncheon that we weren't able to do this year because school's not in session, and honoring the military that graduate from the high school. You know, so we really are fortunate to have year-round recognition of all the people that serve in the military. And a huge shout out to those two committees, both through the Board of Education and our town.
And our town as well. That's right. Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, this is Bill Dietz. I'm having trouble with my video, but I just want to make sure you guys can hear me too.
Yes, you can.
All
We can
right.
hear you, Bill. Yep.
So if you could, I'd just like to make 2 points, probably a little longer than I normally speak in public or council communications. But so first, I'd like to address the Cromwell resolution. I think people probably have heard about it. So I read it. I read the declaration. I read the resolution, and really, and this is no offense to the politicians in Cromwell, but when you look through the political veneer of the language, really, it's nothing more than a request that the governor reconsider his position on executive orders. So I don't want people in Southington thinking that this document has political or teeth to it. Really, again, it's a resolution, and again, I've been on record multiple times now that I'm cautious of putting too much weight into resolutions because at the end of the day, that's all they are. I'm 100% in support of somehow sending a message to the governor, but not through this resolution. I think that's squarely a job for our state legislature or our courts. So that brings me to, what do we do? My suggestion is that at least starting on a local level, which is what we can do, that's what we control. We show some local transparency behind community making decisions whenever we're able. And I'll concede there's going to be situations where we're not able to show transparency for one reason or another. Just a little bit of, just looking back, a little history. So when this pandemic starts, our superintendent, in a historical act, closed our schools. Now, in hindsight, it's an incredible decision, and I'll tip my cap to Mr. McKinnon and whoever else was in charge at that point. Who knows how many lives that quick decision saved. Same can be said for our town manager, Mr. Shota. His decision to close the town offices, again, could have saved, we'll never know, could have saved town lives. So I will tip my cap to both those decisions. They were spot on. Now, fast forward almost 12 weeks, and thankfully, and I think we all can agree, thankfully, we're starting to have discussions about reopenings. But again, we have two recent decisions: the decision to postpone certain events or close certain locations, such as the drive-in theater or high school graduation. These decisions, and it's not my personal opinion, these decisions are not being met by our town with the same deference as the two aforementioned decisions. And I think the reason for it is because the further you get from an initial disaster, the less willing a citizen is to accept unilateral action without some sort of debate and transparency. So again, I'm not here to, argue either side of those two decisions. They're done. But what I'm going to ask is that, look, as much as we can prospectively, any board, any committee, any body, if you're going to make a decision with no public debate, no public discussion, that's going to substantially impact the people of Southington, which I think everyone agreed those two prior decisions did, that you provide some transparency to the public. So look, here's what we can offer. This can mean bringing the issue to town council for a debate. I'm sure many members in this council would oblige. You could request, even if it's not within our jurisdiction, our imprimatur or lack thereof. Again, I think the town council would oblige. But fundamentally and most importantly, look, this is about protecting our political systems. So, it's a natural and healthy part of government for people to disagree over political decisions. Okay. But when people attack the decision-making process, all that does is weaken us as a government and us as a town. So look, if the people don't like a decision that this council makes, they have the option to vote us out and vote new people in 2 years. But there's no recourse when people don't like the decision-making process. Really what results from that is it's a lack of trust in government, and a lack of trust in government has far more reaching consequences. So what I would say is that, starting tonight, and I know Chris and Tommy, I know you guys will deliver on this. Look, let's start with the apple harvest. Let's show the people of Southington, starting with the apple harvest, how we have a debate, how we flesh out the arguments, and how we present our facts, and show the people that, this is where it starts. We start with transparency with the power we have. Thank you.
Does anybody have would they like to respond to Bill's statement?
I would, Madam Chair. This is Paul. Nobody else is.
Go ahead, Paul.
I maybe not as eloquent as Councilperson Nitzig is. So thanks, Bill, for the way that you put that. I think for me that's spot on. I think every situation has learning opportunities for us to learn from, and I think this is no different. Not just in what we're dealing with here in Southington or at the state level, but I think in every facet of this, whether it's my business that I work for, we're learning daily about some of the things we would like to have done differently, and I'm sure many are, whether it's this board, another board, another function within the government here, or private industry. And I would agree with you. To the greatest extent possible, I think we owe it to our citizens to have dialogue. Especially when it comes to options within the community, as we consider options such as, for example, the apple harvest. The drive-in was mentioned earlier. Certainly, debate and discussion about options that could happen for the drive-in, I think, are appropriate to have at this board. I think when we talk about options within recreation or whatever it is, I think if options are available, I think we should have, at the very least, transparency in the decision-making process, if not debate that could allow for, different paths that could occur, so that we're representing the residents of Southington and Connecticut, of course, but Southington in the best possible way, so that they understand the process we're using and the decision-making, and that it's backed up with fruitful dialogue, it's backed up with facts, and that we come to, agreements that are in the best interest of the residents. So, Bill, thanks for your words. They were much more eloquent than mine, but I think they're spot on.
Anybody else have anything to say? I have a couple of things. I want to make sure everybody speaks first. And in theory, I think it's a great idea. But we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. We're feeling good. The sun is shining, beautiful weather today. And the natural thing would be to forget all of the warnings that the governor had said. We're under an executive order which limits our input. This is a health crisis. This isn't whether or not we want to get together at the drive-in early or have an apple cart. We're talking about a health crisis that affects 43,000 plus people in Southington. I am all for input. People can talk about it all they want. But at the bottom line is our responsibility is to protect the health of the folks in Southington. And none of us on this council has a background that would be able to discern the health needs of our community better than our health director. So I just want to get that out there. I have some real concerns because when we start saying and giving people, we start opening up to people and everybody has an opinion, that's fine. I don't mind listening to opinions. We've all listened to a lot of people's opinions over the last week. I would say a great number of opinions. However, I think that this situation is much different than other things. People can have opinions, we'll listen to opinions, but at the end of the day, our responsibility is to make sure that people's health and welfare are protected. And I don't care if 500 people come to me and say, let's do this. And it's not a valid argument because of the health concerns that the governor has spoken about and that our own local health director has spoken about it, then for the betterment of our community, I would not go with it, even if they all wanted to do it. Because I've been elected in this position to make those decisions. And I would not back down from that. So I just wanted to get that out there. I don't want to debate it. I just am telling you my opinion on it. So I'm just going to leave it there. But I want to thank Bill. He is very eloquent and he makes a very good argument. But I also have some concerns on it. But I do appreciate you, Bill. And so I'm just going to leave it there. If there's no other comment on it, we're just going to go on. Are there any other council person communications that we want to talk about tonight? Okay, very good. Right now I am going to, I believe, is Shane on the line right now?
We're going to go special committees first.
Yep, I know that. I just wanted to, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, I lost my place. I got too involved in my statement. Yeah, Apple Harvest Festival Committee, Tom?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Triano. So Councilman Palmieri and myself, we spoke last week, and we are going to have as it stands right now, we're going to have an executive session with the Apple Harvest Advisory Committee on June 3rd. And the purpose of that meeting is to discuss logistics and contractual matters for the festival. And as Councilman Dijic just mentioned, both Councilman Palmieri and myself agreed that it is a very important decision that should be talked about on the council floor. We will be, the advisory committee will be coming to this council on June 8th, which is our first meeting in June. So we're gonna try to look at some of the data that we have coming in, and also some of the things operational from the Apple Harvest. And Chris and or myself will report back to this council on June 8th.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yes.
I had a question on that, just for clarification. This is Paul. So just to Bill Dietzig's point, and just to clarify for Councilperson Lombardi and Palmieri, the discussions in executive session will be about contractual matters, right?
Yeah. So
in the spirit of the councilperson communications between that Bill talked about and that I also mentioned, if there's going to be discussion outside of contractual obligations for the Apple Harvest Committee, it should be held on the floor and debated on the floor and then recommended to council, right?
yeah. So I think Councilman Palmieri, go ahead.
Okay. So Paul, when Tom and I talked about it, we feel exactly the same way. It is just an advisory committee. There's not going to be any vote at the committee level. The contractual matters, because as we all know, there are many groups that are contracted for services at the festival. So we need to hear from, how it's going to impact the contracts that we already have in place. At that point, then we bring it back to the council, and the council ultimately is going to make the decision.
My comment is not, so my comment, Chris, is not about the contracts. Clearly, that's executive session matter, right? You're talking about a contract between an entity and the town, and those are typically in executive session. However, you're going to take the information that you learn from the contracts in the executive session, and then you're going to formulate an opinion on whether to go forward with the apple harvest. You might also think about various scenarios. That's the discussion I think that you should have on the floor, not in executive session. I think, in my personal opinion, as part of the transparency in government that we're talking about, outside of contractual obligations, there will be a thought process and there'll be some dialogue about whether or not it's appropriate to move forward with the apple harvest. And I'm guessing you guys are going to come with a recommendation to council, right? So
when Tom and I talked about it, we actually felt that it was more of a decision in line for the council rather than an advisory committee. So we wanted to have the council make that decision, not make a decision at the festival committee.
So there won't be any recommendation from the festival committee then?
We haven't even had the meeting, so.
Council, I'm fine with the committee not making a recommendation, but to your point, if there are statistics or conversations that are appropriate for an open meeting, I have no problem making the Apple Harvest meeting an open meeting and with an executive session attached to it. And whatever data or conversations that should be had in public, we can certainly include them in the minutes and make the meeting live. I have no issue with that.
May I ask a question, Tom? So in your discussion, are you inviting our health director to make information? Because it's just not about contracts. We're talking about the health of the community as much as we can tell in September. So are you going to also invite the health director to give his medical advice?
I think we will invite him to the meeting.
I think that's wise. Thank you.
So is that executive session matters? Is the discussion about the health discussions? That to me, that seems it's probably not executive session, right?
No, I think it should be open. Sure.
Okay, good.
Madam Chair, may I speak? Smart.
Sure. Go ahead.
Am I off mute? Yeah. The structure of it is that we have an advisory committee and we have a director. So technically, the director would give a recommendation to the town council. So Dave LaPrey would give the recommendation to the town council. If you want to go by the structure that the chair had set up, that's how it works. So Dave LaPrey would not be involved in a certain part of the executive session, obviously, because he's a contractual employee under that part of it. But technically, the recommendation would come with input, obviously, from the advisory board. But the recommendation itself, based upon the new structure of the committee, comes from Dave LaPrey. That's where the recommendation comes from.
Right. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can I ask, because Terry Carmody is on the meeting, so could we go backwards a little bit? I sent you a message. I'm not sure if you got it, but she is here and she emailed us. So could we ask her to speak?
Let's make sure we're done with the apple harvest discussion. Are we done with apple harvest?
I will just close that. If any of the council members or the public listening in tonight have comments, concerns, or issues, that they email myself or Councilman Palmieri or Dave LaPrey, the festival coordinator, and we will be sure to address them at our June 3rd meeting.
Very good, thank you. And Mrs. Carmody is on the line, I think. We've invited. Yes, I am. Thank you, Terry, for being with us tonight. We had invited Mr. Cannellan, but he was not able to make it this evening, so he asked you, which is fine with us. So would you like to discuss with us or tell us what's going on with some of the calendar events for the Board of Education for the schools?
Yes, I would very much. Thank you very much. I hope all of you are well. and thank you for allowing me to speak. The first thing I would like to tell you is that it is the responsibility of the Board of Education to set just the date of graduation. As far as what the graduation will look like and where it will take place is up to the administration of our central administration and the administration of the high school. There is nothing, and we all know this, nothing more important to our students than to let them have the celebration that they so richly deserve. And all of us want that. However, as Vicki said earlier, it is a decision that has to be made, certainly by an executive order and by our health director. We would love to have the beautiful traditional graduation that we have always had in Southington. We have surveyed the students. The students have contacted, I'm sure all of you have gotten emails as well as we have. I've answered the students to tell them that we will do whatever we possibly can to make this happen. On Thursday night, we have a Board of Ed meeting, at which point we will set a tentative date for graduation, depending on all the variables that are out there. It is certainly something that we have to take into consideration, as Ms. Triano said, the health and well-being of all the students. I am a grandmother of, I know I look too young to be a grandmother, but I really am, of 4 students at the high school. And believe me, I want them, as their parents want, them to have what they deserve. So I just want to put that out there on the record, that on Thursday night, we will do the responsibility that we have as a Board of Ed, and that it's only to set the date for graduation. Do I have any questions from any council members?
Is there anyone who has a question for Mrs. Carmody?
If I could, not a question, just a comment.
Sure. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you for being here, Mrs. Carmody. And I think Tim's communication that he sent to all council members was very informative. Right. So I'm very appreciative of that as well, if you could relay that to him too.
Yes, we've been very transparent in all our communication with the students. Our high school principal works daily with the student leadership. Mr. Cannellan has sent numerous communications to the parents, to the students, to the press. So believe me when I tell you, we are doing everything we possibly can to make this happen, if at all possible.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Paul.
Hi, Terry. First of all, thanks for attending, and you know, as a parent of a high school senior, I was copied on the email that came from Mr. Cannellan, which was very good. It was enlightening with the statistical data that accompanied it. And one thing I'm appreciative of is that there was a survey that was done. You know, reached out to the students and asked them what their preference was. So I think it's really good that you know, in a transparent way, we talked to the kids, we asked them what they wanted, and you know, we're trying to accommodate that. I noticed that the date in the letter was August 8th. That was recommended, and in the letter it also recommended or stated that, you know, with that date there's some conflicts with families, I suppose, maybe either vacations, or I believe some of the military students may have conflicts at that time. Was the August 8th recommended date, was there a reason why it was August 8th versus, say, the last week in July, to accommodate those students who might be leaving for military in the first week of August?
You know, Paul, I'm not certain of, I thought it was August 7th with the rain date on the 8th. We will vote on that tomorrow. It's at a Thursday night. Paul, we have heard from as I'm sure many of you have, many parents, and our secretary, Mrs. Clark, has tried to answer as many as she can, and I have also. There were many parents who have planned for their families Caribbean vacations, European vacations during that month. It's unfortunate, Paul, but and the military, I'm not certain when exactly they will leave, because, you know, we always do have students that join the military. We cannot accommodate everyone. We are going to do the very best that we possibly can. And you saw, and I believe you sent an email with all the statistics of what the survey showed. The student survey that we sent out to the kids, they preferred a summer later graduation so that they could perhaps have it at our high school.
Yeah,
So
it was right in line. It was very good. Thank you. I had one question, Terry, that was not graduation related. Can I ask you that?
Of course you can.
BOE related. I had received word that as the town is opening up its parks, its tennis courts, and eventually our basketball courts here recently, I was made aware that the Board of Education was considering keeping their tennis courts closed at the high school and keeping the high school track closed. And I wanted to ask you if that's something that you could look into as the chair of the Board of Ed. I think obviously people are going to want to get out and recreate a little more than they have been. And I think having the tennis courts at the high school would alleviate maybe some of the potential congestion that might occur at other tennis courts throughout the town. And so I'd like to ask you to consider following up on that to see if we can open the tennis courts at the high school. And I would ask the same of the track and the all-purpose field, the football field, for the same exact reasons. I think it's really important that we offer as many opportunities for the community to recreate, but do so in a safe way. And I think by having more options for people, it will help. It'll help that. Additionally, I think those are open taxpayer funded facilities. So I think it's important that, to the greatest extent possible, that we make those available to the people as well.
Well, I don't have a definitive answer on that, Paul, and I will find out for you. I do know that, monitoring that will be a problem so that we do not have more than 5 kids. But I do believe that the town announced that their tennis courts were going to be open, but you could only play singles.
Yeah.
And am I right about that? I think it was only singles. So, and I guess that's going to have to be monitored too. So I will certainly find out and get back to you in an email about the tennis courts and the track. Right now, they aren't. I don't believe anyone's allowed up there, but I will find out. I do not have the answer for you at this time.
Yeah, thanks. I think tennis courts open today in the rest of town. So I do think it's important. As I mentioned, those are public spaces and they're taxpayer funded. And unless there's a compelling reason to keep them closed, I would implore the Board of Education to consider opening them.
Well, I think the compelling reason, Paul, is going to be that it might be difficult to control. I mean, what if think about a bunch of boys or girls.
With all due respect, I'm sorry, Terry. I'm sorry. With all due respect, that's the same problem we have around the world. So we have to find a way to make that happen. We can't use that as an excuse.
Okay, I think right now, excuse me, Terry, I think we discussed that. You're familiar what Mr. Chaplinsky's question is, and because you have oversight over those fields, I'm sure that the Board of Ed will discuss it and will come to a decision.
Right, I will do that.
Thank
Are
you.
there any other
questions for Mrs. Carmody? Okay, hearing none, thank you, Terry, very much for being with us, and
you're very welcome.
Yeah, very, very nice of you to be here. Thank you.
All right, good night all. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
See you.
Good night.
I'm going back to the report of special committees right now. I'm going to the sewer department.
Madam Chair, this is Bill. I'm going to have to defer to Councilwoman DiPaolo. I was not at the last meeting. I had a work conflict.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Ms. DiPaolo, would you like to take it on?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to give a brief update on our last meeting, the sewer plant upgrade is approximately 72% complete. And we're looking at about a year out for substantial completion. Staff reports that everything's moving along really well, even with the COVID situation with safety precautions in place. There really have been no significant delays with that. So that's really good news. Also moving forward, the south end pump station improvements, everything's moving forward there. And with the Blatchley pump station, the installation of the gravity line is active. And That's been moving forward. The only issue now is some of the cleanup work and the restoration work for the property owner on Blatchley Avenue to repair their property. And lastly, for the elimination of the Blatchley pump station, I believe the town manager signed a contract with D'Amato Construction. I think that contract was executed, and there was going to be a pre-construction meeting on May 14th. And the staff reports on that they don't anticipate any adverse issues. So that looks really good too.
Great, thank you, Val. Anyone have any questions for Councilwoman DiPaolo? Okay. Hearing none. Self-insurance, Chris Poulos, are you going to bring us up to date?
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. The Self-Insurance Committee met by teleconference on May 20th. There are 2 items to report. April claims were $688,000 under budget. For the year, we're about $1 million under budget for fiscal year 1920. Now, those numbers seem large, but our consultant indicated that we'll likely end the year significantly under budget. And we're going to have a lot of money that we're going to put into the self-insurance reserve account. The large deposit into the reserve is the result of the significant decrease in claims during the recent pandemic, because people have canceled medical appointments, elective procedures, and dental appointments. The consultant indicated that in 2021, next year, we're going to need to access the funds that we put into the reserve account in order to cover made-up medical costs, which will be incurred next year once we're back into a normal claim situation. Because we'll have next year's claims plus people trying to make up stuff that they missed during the last 3 months. Number 2 was that the Self-Insurance Committee presented recommended language updates to the self-insurance fund balance policy for the council for review. And that should be in our stuff tonight.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who has any questions, or Tom Lombardi, if you want to add anything?
I just want to maybe just reiterate what Councilman Poulos said. It's like, it looks great on paper that we're $1 million under budget, but it's almost expected due to the events of the last few months. So it certainly was a very interesting few months on the Self-Insurance Committee, but I think overall, the committee and the fund itself are in a very good spot, and hopefully we don't incur a major disaster for 2021. But if we do, I think we're in a solid position to handle it.
Very good. Any questions for self-insurance? Thank you, everybody. Hearing none, Mike Del Santo, could you bring us up to date on the long-term recovery subcommittee, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have our second meeting last Wednesday, the 20th, at 12 noon, and we had about between 25 and 30 people log on to the meeting. It was a well-received meeting. We discussed last Wednesday was the actual reopening date, so we discussed some of the restaurants reopening and how that procedure was going. Our town planner, and actually the assistant town planner was covering for the town planner that day. He had said that up to date there were about 17 restaurants that chose to do outdoor dining, and I checked with them today, and I guess there's an additional 8. So around 25 restaurants in town did put in applications to do the outside dining. I did see a couple of restaurants around town over the past 3 or 4 days. It looks like they're doing really, really well. I ordered some from local restaurants over the weekend, and everything was delicious. So once again, we need to support our local businesses. We talked about barbershops and salons will be reopening on June 1st. All retail must be held at a 50% occupancy. And then the town departments have been working really hard to get open as well. And Mr. Shota discussed how, the town hall was opening today. Public won't be able to get in until the 8th. So once folks, if you can, use email, use telephone, use as much contact-less methods to operate with the town hall as you can, as much as you can, unless you really have to come down to the town hall. The library and the calendar house are still on hold. The library is set to open through electronic means only on the 15th. and the Calendar House will more to report going forward with that. Any questions? I know we talked about Center Street, the upper part of Center Street, the restaurants on Center Street decided not to close the road. They were very dependent on their pickup processes, but Lower Center Street did get together, and we were able to close the lower part of Center Street, and it's working out well. Restaurants are putting tables out in front of their property, and we want to commend the fire department and the police department and the town staff for helping us get that done so quickly. The restaurants down there are ready, and they'll be using the outdoor dining in Lower Center Street, and they're using the road to do so. So these restaurants requested us to close the road, and we did it. They're open. The road will be closed until at least June 20th. That's when the next phase is supposed to take place. So I would imagine between now and June 20th, there'll be more information from the governor's board with regards to any further restrictions or lessening of some restrictions. And hopefully part of that will be some indoor dining. And that's what restaurants are really looking forward to, for some indoor dining. I did hear from some constituents, Mark, maybe you could weigh in here, or Shane even, with regards to the library. I know we had said that we're holding off until the 15th to do online pickup and drop off for the library. And so the question became, how come, if most other departments are ready to rock on June 8th, how come the library needs that additional week? So maybe you could weigh in. Is there anything that we can do to help move that process along so the library could be online a little sooner than the 15th?
I can answer that one. The proposal from the library director, and she put together an excellent proposal on how it's going to begin. And it's not just drop off and pick up, but there's also possibilities of delivery to people who are in-house sheltered, who can't get to the library, and discussions between ourselves and as well as our partner communities. It was decided that we would do the 15th of July. I've received only positive stuff. So if you receive something negative on that, let me know. But the only emails and calls I received on that was positive, because I believe that that being open on the 15th will be something sooner than most. I know our border town to the south is not open yet, and so I'm pleased with we're going to be doing it by the 15th. I'd rather do it the way that she set out rather than doing it faster. So in this particular case, I'm comfortable with the 15th. And if the person has any questions, I've been getting everything online. The electronic things that they have over there, the downloading of the books has absolutely been fantastic. But if someone does have a specific problem, certainly call Christy or my office, and we'll be able to handle that problem for them. But I'm comfortable, and I know that our health director is comfortable with the 15th at this point.
Okay, just for clarification, you said July, you mean June 15th?
What I said?
Oh, you said July, but that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, June 15th. Yeah.
No, it wasn't a problem. They're excited. People are excited. They want to get back into the library to get books or DVDs or CDs. So if anything can move the process along any sooner, that would be very helpful for all.
Like everything is everything is fluid. So obviously, if something pops up that we can do something a little sooner, we could try and do that. But at this moment, as I mentioned, every time I send out my Mondays updates, everything is fluid. If something, God forbid, if something negative starts happening, then we have to look at the dates. But if positive things happen and logistically we can do it, you could always look at things like that. So certainly I'll keep that on my radar. But right now, plans are definitely for the 15th. And if something can be done a little sooner, that's always going to be looked at. So along with, as I mentioned, I think somebody mentioned already, we're talking about the basketball court, and we're talking about the what do we say? The basketball courts we're talking about the playscapes. Right now, those are scheduled for the 20th. But who knows if new information comes our way. So some of these dates are fluid, but certainly I don't want to give dates and then have to do what the governor did, which is back the wrong way. If I bring them forward, no one's going to complain about that. But if I push them the other way, that's where the complaints happen.
Okay. Thank you so much. I see, just 1 second, please. Chris Palmer, Paul had his hand up. Councilman Chaplinsky, did you have a question?
I just had a couple comments. First thing was, Mark, on the library. Is it possible? Can I get a copy, or can we get a copy of the May library board packet that goes out? Is that something that we can get a copy of?
The May packet?
Yeah.
Or the minutes?
Yeah, the May packet that goes out.
Okay. I get it from the director. I'm not sure what the packet says, but.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Mike,
All
I wanted to make a comment. I wanted to make a comment on the opening. I want to say that, I've been down now a few times with the outdoor dining in various places around town. And I wanted to say thank you to you and Chris and the others, Shane and the rest who are working on the reopening. I'm going to say that, I can see that there is a strong collaboration with the businesses in town. There's a lot of dialogue going on. There's been a lot of support. I know because, I've talked to a number of business owners who have been very positive about the collaboration that the town has been having to get them open, to maintain flexibility in our regulations so that they can open in creative ways and have outdoor dining and deal with differences in parking and so on and so forth. So I want to say thank you to you guys, because I know it's a difficult task. You're doing it at breakneck speed. You probably have to look at each of these things on a case-by-case basis. And I know, that there's been some chatter out there with respect to concern about, the way that Southington is planning on handling, potential complaints, for example, that may come in. And I know that, the model that Southington has always taken is that we do things in a fair way. We do things in a collaborative way. And I know that there is every intention for us to work with our business owners to ensure that if any issues arise, that we work with them to address them in a positive way, in a collaborative way. And I have no doubts that that is on the horizon for this committee. And I have no doubts that that's how, things will be handled if there's an issue that arises. And Mark, if I'm speaking out of school about a complaint or something that may come in the future, correct me, but I'm confident that is a dialogue that happens.
If I may, spoken to not only the chair, but several members of the council. The governor wanted us to establish point people for any complaints, because the last thing we want to do is have the complaints end up with the police department. A, they're way too busy right now, and B, we have trained people on our staff who are good with conflict resolution. That's why the key appointment is Matt Raimundo, our CEO, who you all may know is the former chief of police, who's an expert in conflict resolution. And the second in command is your town manager, and I've spent my life in conflict resolution. So those are the two aspects of it. So we are the first two people who would respond to things like complaints. I'm happy to say that I don't believe we received a complaint, and we've been obviously operating since last Wednesday. So the goal obviously is to keep the police at bay, out of the situation, because they don't want to be involved, and nor do we need them involved. Unless the situation warrants it. So I'm very comfortable that Matt Raimundo and myself can handle conflict resolution for any issue that may come up. And like I said, I'm very proud to say from our Southington residents and business owners standpoint, there hasn't been a whiff of conflict as of this moment.
Paul, I'm not sure if it's just my computer or not, but it was very, very choppy. I'm not sure how everybody else is receiving that. Is everyone hearing it okay?
I heard him.
Yeah, I'm hearing it okay. Yeah, I think it may be yours. But Madam Chair, I just wanted to follow up with Paul. Thank you for the kind words, but I owe it to the committee. It's easy when you have great people on the committee and town staff. I mean, our town planner is responding to emails at 10 o'clock on Saturday night. The local restaurants are emailing, and we're responding immediately. And the turnaround is 2 or 3 days. So we're doing things quickly. We're doing things efficiently and effectively. And like I said, it's easy when you have a committee made up of such great people. So it's kudos to the whole committee and town staff and the fire department, and the police department, the health department, for making sure these things are moving quickly. So thank you all. Any other questions?
Yeah. Yes. Chris Palmieri.
Just to continue the positivity, Mike, I completely agree with everything you just said. The other department I want to thank is the highway department. Seeing how quickly they moved the barriers to close Center Street was remarkable and appreciated. And honestly, if you haven't seen, Channel 30 did a new clip. I know Mark sent it out to us. It was really fantastic to see such positivity for our town. And I feel like just looking at that, we're being leaders in what we're doing to help our businesses and our restaurants. So I'm very proud to serve on that and proud of the work we're doing. So Mike, I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting because, as Paul indicated, and you also, Chris, that there really is a collaboration and there was really an effort to do what we could to help those businesses. I think it was remarkable how well the committee worked with our restaurants and are continuing to work so well with them. So I give you kudos and thank you so much. I do want to recognize, I know Chris Poulos wanted to go back just for a minute to self-insurance. So Chris Poulos, do you want to just take it for a minute?
Yeah, I something additional to the report I've already given.
Oh no, Chris, I just wanted to point out to the council that the wording changes that were distributed in the package this evening, the committee discussed that. We just wanted to give them to the council tonight, but we're not taking action on it until our June town council meeting.
That's right. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about that. Yes.
I may have missed it. I just want to make sure the council members were aware.
Terrific. Thank you, everybody. That's great. Any other reports of special committees? Anybody? Okay, very good. Town manager's report and communication. Mark, report from the health director.
That's our first thing, report from health director, Mr. Lockwood.
Okay, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, just like in my past couple reports, we continue to see new cases every day, and a lot of that has to do with the result of the widespread availability of testing. Testing is really available statewide, all hours. So a lot of the new cases are a result of just greater testing. Unfortunately, we still are seeing fatalities associated with it, typically an older individual. But I know today the state report listed 27 new deaths with it. So I think it's great that we're reopening. I like to just keep the victims, both who are getting ill, their families, and the fatalities in our mind as we move forward. As Councilman Del Santo mentioned, the restaurant reopening last week I thought was great. We received absolutely no complaints, only positive feedback for how quickly town staff was able to move it forward. That's saying a lot. I can tell you probably since the start of the pandemic to last week, we received well over 150 complaints from people being in large box stores, being in public. All 150 cases, we contacted business owner, educated them about what was expected of them, and usually provided them information, and we've had no problems whatsoever. And that continued last week. I also wanted to compliment the town planner. I know before I left the office today around 5:30, I got a call from a restaurant who is putting up a large tent, and they got a call about 5 o'clock tonight that the tent could actually be here on Thursday, which was a week earlier than what they thought. I've already talked to the town planner, and we should be able to approve the application by midday tomorrow so that they could get their tent in on Thursday. I mean, it's remarkable how quickly everybody's moving. So I want to thank Rob for that one. Our focus if we do get any complaints, as Mark had mentioned, we're going to continue to educate these businesses. Under the governor's order, there also allows a provision for the health department to investigate. We have over 600 places that we license, and what we plan on doing is continue to educate. Nobody wants to do anything wrong here. There's a lot of leeway in the guidelines, and our whole purpose is to give them best practices. And like I said, we're going to continue that going forward. One thing I would like to address with the executive order is I've gotten some questions regarding if I could increase recreation gathering sizes, things like that. We are not allowed to be, we're not allowed to change the executive orders where we would be more relaxed. We could be stricter than the executive order, but we can't be more relaxed. So that's an important thing to remember is we don't have that ability as either a municipality or municipal agent. But again, we're looking forward to phase 2 reopening, hopefully on June 20th. We're hoping that there's a relaxation in some of the recreation gathering sizes. Maybe that will allow for some of the summer sports going forward. I know everybody's anxious to practice. We've seen some groups of 5 or less, which is allowed under the executive order, take to our field. And we're hoping that as we get closer to June 20th, we might get some guidelines as far as what we could expect for the summer going forward. So we're very hopeful for that. I'm also thankful for the Board of Ed tonight, putting out the information regarding graduation. I've probably spoken to Superintendent Cannellan every day since early March. They've done some great work, especially with feeding the student families, the technology, and I have all confidence that what decision they come to with graduation will be just a sound for the health and safety of all those in attendance. And then the last thing I think I have to address is the comments and concerns of the residents regarding the drive-in. As far as closing it for June and July, it was based on many decisions, such as the increase in cases, the increase in fatalities that we're experiencing right now, the trend of this disease, along with the fact the makeup of our drive-in. From speaking with the drive-in committee, I've really learned that this is not a drive-in like the private ones that are operating throughout the state. This is one where it's not unheard of to have families show up three hours before a movie, use the playground, picnic together. Speaking to the driving committee, I know there's a lot of concerns regarding ours is all run by volunteers, trying to have volunteers, police, or enforce numbers, whether it be 5 for a social gathering, 50, which hopefully is a number on June 20th, or potentially up to 100 on July 20th from some of the early outlooks for this. So it was a difficult decision. We're hopeful that come mid-July, it looks good as far as the way this is tracking, and that we're able to open up beginning of August and throughout September. So like I said, it wasn't something we took lightly, that we took everything into consideration before making that decision. So, and I think that's the end of my report, but I'd like to open up to any questions from the council if you have any.
Sure. Thank you, Shane, for being with us and answering a lot of questions just in your report. I know, Paul, you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, hi. Shane, I had a couple things. The one question on the drive-in, is there other if we had a different format, would you consider different formats? I heard you talk about a lot of the decision-making process behind closing the. If there was a different format for our drive-in, would that then be considered differently from your perspective, or do you think that because of the cases, that it's something that we just can't do?
I think right now it's I'm comfortable with the decision, but the drive-in committee, I think that's the way to go since they've worked on it. The drive-in committee wants to put together a plan and something we can discuss. I'd certainly talk to them, but I think for the foreseeable future, this is the right way to go. I mean, it is tough when you look at it. Thankfully, hospitalizations are down 65% since mid-April, but if you look at it, Hartford County right now has an increase in hospitalization, and we saw a slight uptick in hospitalizations yesterday. So while there's a lot of positives happening right now, it's important to remember that those cases are still happening.
Thanks, Shane. And then my only other question was really forward-looking. It was earlier on in your discussion. Is there anything from the town standpoint that you would looking at phase 2, phase 3, are there significant obstacles for us that we need to have on top of mind that we should be getting prepared for? Or do you feel like that we're pretty well positioned and that it's going to be an easy step to go from 1 to 2?
I'm sorry, broke up there at the end, Paul, but I think I get the gist. So as far as I think we're well positioned. It's going to come down to being able to adjust quickly. If you look at the restaurant guidelines that came out, you looked at maybe 10 days notice on it. So this is not something where I expect guidelines to come out any day now. It'd probably be 10 days before the 20th, if that's the date. And as the town manager mentioned before, these are not set in stone by the state. So we'll wait to see what the guidelines are, and we'll adjust. But I think we're in very good shape no matter what comes our way.
That's great. Okay, thanks, Shane.
Thank you, Shane. Councilwoman DiPaolo, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Shane, I think you just answered it for me. It was really along the lines of the guidelines coming out for June 20th. It sounds like those would not be coming out until closer to June 20th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
That's historically that's what's been happening over the course of this. So that's what I'm expecting.
Okay. Thanks, Shane.
Okay. Any other questions from the council for Shane? Shane, we appreciate you being with us and being as candid as you are, and we'll look forward to our next report. So thank you, Shane, very much. Town manager's report. We continue report on the Board of Finance.
Yes, Madam Chair. The Board of Finance met on May 13th. I would reference their minutes, pages 8 through 11, which is the action that you'll be taking tonight. The first section is pretty rote, but I would suggest we look at paragraph 10. Paragraph 10 is the first of 2 installments for the funding of the capital budget. Just to refresh your memory, at your last your last meeting, you approved the budget, which included year 1 of the capital budget. Part of the funding for that was approximately $1.6 million, which was going to be obtained through budget reallocation. With the help of the Board of Finance and our finance director, we did phase 1, which is approximately $960,000. Phase 2 will come at the next Board of Finance meeting, and will come to you at the end of June. But I look at paragraph 10. These are the items that we're funding. And what we do is we chose the priorities that we're moving forward first, and let's talk about those. $50,000 is going to go for the public safety radio system. That's the police department and fire department. $60,000 is the town hall budget. That's where we're going to be redoing the cupola, which, perfectly blunt, will end up on Main Street if we don't do it pretty soon. The next one is very, very important. That's the $250,000 that we have for our sidewalk program. Obviously, Mike and Paul know that very well. We use that money for not only when people come in and want to put new sidewalks in, and we give them a portion of it, but also we look at sidewalks around town that actually need to be done for safety purposes. The next one is $275,000 for the capital budget, which is Spring Street. This does not need any kind of introduction, but this is the lane that we're going to be using, the turning lane we've all been looking for many years. And I can't thank enough Plan B. They gave us all the easements without any cost to the town. So that will move forward as soon as we get permission from the DOT. And the final 3, I felt that we needed to do these first because the BOE needs to do this during the summer. So they're going to be $118,000 is for the high school sound system. $123,000 is to remove a fuel tank from one of the elementary schools. And then the $67,000 is to assist the Board of Ed in completing the paving for the high school. As I'm sure you're aware, that project has started. The Board of Education has allotted an amount of money for that. We expect that it costs a little bit more than the Board of Ed had allowed. So this is the money to cost that for the extra cost. So I'm happy to say phase 1 of the capital budget for budget reallocation monies, assuming you vote on it tonight, will be completed, and I'll be coming back to you at your second meeting in June to complete the entire process. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mark concerning this?
I have a quick question, Madam Chair.
Sure, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager, for the explanations. That was one of my questions for this evening. So the town hall, what did you say it was? The cupola renovation?
Yeah, we have a big issue, which is the cupola, which I'm sure may or not be aware. We've been thinking about fixing that for quite a long time. It's rotted out and is in not in the best shape. So that was for number one. And part of that money is also going to be used to put in the access from the assessor's office to the assessor office. You know where the two assessors' office are? One, the main office, and the other one, you have the ancillary office. Those two cannot connect because of the wall there, so we're going to opening up that wall. Those are the two improvements.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, there's like
No, we redid the roof. If you remember correctly, we did the roof on the town hall a couple of years ago, and the cupola should have been done at that time. I believe that was 5 or 6 years ago, but the resources ran out, and like everything with municipal, now we've come to a point where it has to be done, so that's why it's being done.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Czaplinski, you have a question?
I was just going to say thank you, Mark, for getting the cupola going, because even I was out there this weekend looking, and I was noticing how much is actually peeling and hanging off of the cupola. It's actually I would say it's borderline a safety concern.
That's why we're doing it. But yeah, I think you had mentioned it to me before, Paul, and I know that a couple of other council people. But I've been trying to get this. Last year, of course, we had other priorities that if you remember, we had to cut the capital last year. So in this case, we were able to do it through budget reallocation, and that's a primary one on there. So thank you for support on that one. Any other questions? Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce Mark Bodman. He's in front of us before. He is what I classify as an expert on not only recycling, but also household waste. He's been our key person for as long as I can remember with our BROFOC. So I'd like to introduce Mark, and he's going to explain that the 14 towns extension for the the household waste. So Mark, are you still on?
Mark,
Okay,
welcome
Mark, you're on.
back to the Southington Council meeting. It's been a while, but we're anxious to hear your report tonight.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the invitation to participate. So the inter-community agreement, which is before you.
Mark, can you speak up? I can't hear you.
I think you're speaking away from your microphone, Mark.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, okay.
So the inter-community agreement, which is before you for approval, represents a renewal of an agreement that dates back to 1985. Southington being one of the initial signers.
Sorry, Mark. Can we ask you to speak up? You're quite soft, and we want to make sure, because we are recording, that we get everything on the record. And we can barely hear you. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No problem. Better?
Yes, you just have to be cognizant about speaking loud.
Okay. So the 1985 agreement, Southington was one of the original signers of the agreement, thanks to John Weissel and his influence to the funding and construction of the Bristol Resource Recovery Facility, which processes trash originally from 8 towns, eventually 14 communities, including Southington. And the original inter-community agreement is now obsolete. And so what we have presented to the communities is an update which is very streamlined, does not reflect the commitment for full faith and credit of obligations for payment of bonds. There is no debt service at this point. All of the agreements are between Covanta Bristol and the individual communities. And the organization continues to assist communities in monitoring some of the key contractual provisions, including the commitments, the annual commitments, the revenue forwarded back as credits from Covanta for electricity revenue and for outreach. And we are involved in issues related to plant performance. And right now we actually do have a disruption in service with very long wait times, and we're working to communicate with the company Covanta to address that issue. So this is very much streamlined relative to the original agreement, which was tailored around a service agreement with Covanta, which involved paying debt, directly making payments to the company, which no longer is the case. Each individual community makes those payments to the company, Covanta, based on the amount of tons delivered to the facility. We've also assisted with the communities in developing recycling options, and state statute, recycling is mandatory. There are a number of commodities that are required to be recycled, and we have contracted with Murphy Road Recycling, representing 9 of the communities. We assisted the town of Southington in a dispute in 2018 regarding that same agreement. And we're looking forward to what the state proposes to do to reduce the amount of trash and increase the rate of recycling. So there are provisions in the agreement which provide for this intercommunity association to participate and assist the towns. And currently we have funds available to do that. At some point, that funding will run out, and each community will need to make a decision about the level of effort that they wish to devote to waste management practices, recycling, diversion of waste, composting, etc. And all of this is complicated for the moment by COVID-19 because there's certain things that the state DEEP would like us to be doing that simply are infeasible in light of current situation with the spread of COVID. One thing I will say is that we have noticed a significant increase in the amount of residential waste because people are at home, kids are out of school, commercial volumes are down, and so it's a new experience in terms of how we manage the inventory, the deliveries, and schedule downtime and scheduled maintenance. So a couple key provisions that I will reference from the agreement related to contractual provisions. We, as the regional organization, confirm the calculation of the electrical revenue share, the annual reserved capacity, the monthly capacity limits for commercial haulers, and other related contractual provisions in the agreement, some of which involve detailed calculations and back and forth with the company Covanta Bristol, which has been in business since 1985, and it's been a successful partnership. One of the things I recall on numerous occasions, former town manager John Lexell saying that he felt this was a signature achievement in his career, being a part of this regional organization and developing a mechanism for Southington residents to have disposal options in their backyard and not rely upon Hartford and the DEEP to manage things on behalf of the town of Southington. And with that, I will be free to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mark, very much. We appreciate your input and always very enlightening and interesting. Are there any people on the council who have any questions for Mark? I know we received information from the town manager on this whole report, so we were pretty well caught up. But I don't see any questions. So, Mark, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and we appreciate your time and your expertise.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Mark, does that conclude, Mark Shota, does that conclude your report this evening?
It does, Chair, and obviously I'll turn it over to the town attorney.
Thank you. Before we go to the town attorney, does the council have any questions for the town manager? Okay. Attorney Taylor.
Thank you, Madam. One item on my report today. You heard the town manager speak. This is the ordinance appropriating $2.5 million for costs related to the design and construction of a backup well, which is well number 10, for the Southington Water Department's well number 9, and authorizing the issuance of $2.5 million in bonds, notes, temporary notes, and other obligations to finance the appropriation. This is before you because it is governing a municipal improvement, which is governed under Connecticut General Statute 8-24. So the referral needs to go to the Planning and Zoning Department for consideration. Is there any questions on that?
I'm sorry, Jeremy, can I cut in for a second?
Sure, please.
Yeah, the referral went to Planning and Zoning and it's come back favorably. It's in the packet.
All right, so we jump. So Planning and Zoning has reported back favorably on this.
On our agenda, item A under old business. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. We are going to open up public communication. Paul, will you help us maneuver through all of that, please? And I know we do have some folks on the phone that would like to speak as well. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Paul. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. If it's okay, Madam Chair, can we first ask anybody that's on the meeting via computer who if they have the ability to unmute themselves, if they want to unmute themselves and begin to talk, and then what we'll do is we'll open the phone lines up after the folks on the computer, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
That's perfect. Thank you. So right now we're opening up for computer users. If you have something to say, please let Paul know. He will unmute you and or you can unmute yourself and you can identify yourself. You have 5 minutes. The town clerk will continue to monitor that 5 minutes to share whatever is on your heart. Give your name and address, please. And we're here to listen. I would ask the people who are not speaking to please mute your sound, because I can hear people in the background right now. And so it becomes very confusing. If you are not speaking, please mute your phone or your computer. Thank you so much. Okay, anybody from the world of computers want to speak today? Anybody from the public?
I see that there is a Mike on the phone, on the computer, and his microphone is unmuted.
Okay, Mike, I see you
want to speak.
Terrific. Could you speak to us today, Mike?
Okay. So I'll put Mike back on if he's not speaking.
And I think you're gonna have to mute people. I can hear dogs barking and kids crying.
That was Mike's line that was unmuted, I believe.
Sorry, Mike. I'm sure he's a wonderful dog.
There are some other folks who are attending on the computer. If anybody is having a problem unmuting themselves and you're on the computer, just please type in the chat window that you would like to speak and I could probably help you unmute. Otherwise, is there anybody else who would like to speak? It looks like James LaRosa.
Hi, Paul. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson and fellow council members. I do apologize. I have a dog barking in the backyard.
It's
Close
okay.
all the windows. I'm sorry about that. Let me try to close these windows just as I got on.
Okay.
So thank you for your time. I'm calling. I'm at 90 Baldwin Circle here in Southington, and I'm calling representing myself, but also representing the Southington Travel Blue Knights baseball team. We have about 200 families very anxious and kids about when we think we can get our teams back on the field. We're a nonprofit group, so we rely heavily on using our town fields. And many of the programs that we're with are scheduling tournaments as we speak. I guess our main concern, it's not really a concern, is we are dependent on the government, their subcommittee in deciding what the guidelines. We have sent the town our guidelines. We have gotten this from other groups from the Mid-Atlantic down to Florida, and we really kind of put together what we thought was an excellent plan. We've worked with some of the softball groups in town too to come up with a plan, and we have a plan. But what my concern is when the governor opens this up, is there going to be any period in time after the 20th that maybe, Mr. Lockwood or Dave LaPrey or the town council will add any additional delays? Will there be any subcommittees, or will we be ready to go? Provided we could adhere to those guidelines, will we be ready to go on the 20th? Because there's about 20 other towns that have told us they are 100% scheduling games on the 20th. And that's great. We don't want to send this message out to our families and only to get turned down. And we certainly don't want to schedule other teams because we use a lot of the Little League fields. Well, we use them all. So we just wanted to get a little bit of an idea that will there be any additional guidelines in addition to what the town or the state comes up with, and will we be able to implement that on the 20th for games starting, shortly thereafter, 21st, 22nd, 23rd? That's really my main concern, for our group. And we can go and play at field down south. The problem is they cost money, and we're a nonprofit, so we try to, and we have about 200 kids. We probably have close to 400. We're almost bigger than the Little Leagues now with both our fall programs. So we have a lot of interest, and now that Little League is potentially going to end, we've been getting calls about Little League players that want to join our group, but we're just kind of we're standing by to wait and see. So that's all. It was more of a statement, but if there's any, I don't know if Shane's still on the call, if he wanted to chime in on this, but that's about all I have.
I'm not sure Shane is on the call, but may I ask just a question, Jim? We don't usually go back and forth, but because of the time element. So are there other towns in Connecticut that have given you a positive statement that they're going to go?
Yes, I actually have a list here. I can give you the list if you want it, because we've been kind of working on it, trying to get, but there's about 20 so far.
Okay.
And two or three jump in every day.
Okay. What I would like is to get a copy of that, and we can submit it to Shane. And of course, with the caveat that we don't know what the governor's going to do. We hope the governor is going to move more proactively, but we're not completely sure. So what I would say is if you could provide that for us, we can give it to Shane, and maybe he can address it directly to you and the Traveling Blue Knights. It's a great team, by the way. All those kids are helped so much, and so if we can do it, I would really love to see you do it. But I don't want to overstep my bounds on this thing. So if you can provide that for us, you can either email it to us. Our emails are right online, and we'll get it and we'll take a look at it, and I'll ask Shane to get back to you with whatever information he has. Is that fair enough?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. That is perfectly fair. Thank you very much. We will do that. We'll get that list and sent to an email to you guys, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's a great team. You're helping so many kids. I think it's wonderful. We're glad to do it. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Anybody else, Paul, on the computer?
We haven't received the text that anybody wants to speak. Before I open the phone lines, is there anybody else on the computer that can unmute themselves that would like to speak? Okay. So what I'm going to do is, it looks like we have maybe 6 telephone call-ins. So I'm going to unmute all 6. Unfortunately, we can't, it's not, we have no ability to determine who's going to go first. So I'll unmute all 6. If somebody would like to just jump in and say that they would like to talk during public communications, please go ahead.
Mr. Chaplinsky, I would like to talk.
Sure.
Susan Zabahansky. Okay, great. Hi, Susan Zabahansky, 28 Working Street. I have a couple of things. The first issue I want to address is I am having trouble getting on to this WebEx. So I think if the town council could address that issue and put an embedded link instead of this copy paste the link that you have on the agenda, that would be something that would be helpful for other people. I don't know why I had problems this week, but I typed it in manually. I copied and pasted, and it didn't allow me on. So that's the first thing. My next thing is I am very much in agreement with Councilman Dziedzic and Councilman Chaplinsky that there needs to be transparency within the town council. And with all due regard, I disagree a little bit with Councilwoman Triano about the fact that it is the elected officials' job to protect our health. I think in a broad aspect that is true. However, in a general sense, it is not. And I think we're beyond an emergency state, as I mentioned last week. There is a slight rise in numbers. It's not significant enough to deem us an emergency state of affairs. And therefore, I do think it's very important that the town council is transparent about things and allows public input as far as decisions that are being made. Last week, someone had asked Mr. Lockwood if he was imposing things that were beyond what the government said, and he answered no, but that, we've found that to be a little bit untrue as far as dog parks and drive-ins and those sort of things. So while I respect his decision, his decisions, I think that there does need to be some discussion with the public about these things. We are, our health is the sole responsibility of ourselves as individuals and in collaboration with our doctors. And certainly I don't think it's the job of the council to protect an individual's health. Yes, we need to protect the healthcare system to not allow it to be overwhelmed so that people do not have access to health care. And I think we've beyond done that. None of our hospitals have been overwhelmed. And so, again, I'm going to, speak about that, the government overreaching is an issue. And I think it is important. And there is a lot of distrust in the government at this point. So I do think transparency is important. And so I did want to just stand in agreement with Councilman Dziedzic and Chaplinsky on that matter. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else, Paul?
Madam Chair, I muted all the other lines, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute Sue, and I'm going to unmute everybody else. So now, is there any other call-in members who would like? You're all on. All your lines are open. Anybody else who would like to speak? Any call-in users who would like to speak? You're all taken off mute at this point. Okay, Madam Chair, if you agree, I'll put everybody back on mute.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, it's Mike Del Santo. Can I just say something? I know Sue had said it's hard to get into the meeting, but the main page now of the Southington, if you go to the Southington page and click on calendar, there is a link that gets you right into the meeting now. So
actually,
I used it. That's how I got in tonight. If you go to the main page under the calendar for tonight's meeting, so you don't have to go into the agenda to click the link, there is a link right on that main page now. So thank you, Kathy, for doing that. Thanks for Margaret for.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
It's Jim.
Yes, Jim.
I just want to say that I also was not able to access the email on my company computer. So I tried typing in the password for the meeting and I couldn't get in. It said it was either not active or invalid. So I understand what the call-in woman said. So I do think I didn't try what Mike did. I know that if you have the correct information, and you can click it. It generally does go in, but to join the meeting manually is difficult. So I think she's correct.
Okay, very good. We'll have Paul look at it and maybe Jay can look at it with us and we can come up with something. All right, so let's move on to old business action on the 824, item A. Do I have a motion?
So moved. This is Paul.
Paul,
Second.
and second, who
Second,
seconded it? Mike?
Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Is that correct? Okay, unanimously passes. Item A. Item B, action on the public hearing.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Val. Anybody have a second for that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris, very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously passes. Very good.
Madam Chair, could I get-
Yes?
Okay, I was on. The motion was made by whom?
Val, was made by Val and seconded by Chris Palmieri.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. The motion is, I got to read this to the record. Remember, it's a bond ordinance. Ordinance appropriating $2.5 million for costs related to the design and construction of a backup well number 10 for the Sunnytown Water Department's well 9, and authorizing the issuance of $2.5 million bonds, notes, temporary notes, and other obligations to finance the appropriation. And it has to be a roll call vote, Madam Chair.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Shota. So we're going to do a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Palmieri,
Yes.
Pulis,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo. That was a yes for Mike. DiPaolo,
Yes, Kathy.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi, Morelli,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes, the matter passes unanimously. Thank you so much, everyone. Item C, the action on the Board of Finance.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Finance meeting from
Thank you.
from May 13th, 2020, and specifically for the items outlined by the town manager.
Thank you, Tom. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second, Del Santo.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Del Santo seconded it. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Just a point of discussion, Chairwoman.
Okay, fine. Sure, go ahead.
I just want to thank the town manager. I think it's very important when there are items like that in the Board of Finance minutes that, you know, we're approving. I think it's very important that they get pointed out the way that they were this evening. Because sometimes we vote on these minutes and we don't even know sometimes that there's items in there that we're voting yes or no on. So.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. So let me just call the vote again. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's unanimous. Action on the community agreement, item D. May I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Paul, you made the motion. Anybody second it?
Second, Del Santo.
Okay, Mike Del Santo seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, I see it's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. That passes unanimously. New business, tax refunds. Councilwoman DiPaolo, can you make the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will make a motion to approve the tax refunds as outlined in our packet.
Very good. Do I have a
This is
second?
Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Bill seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. We have two appointments up this evening. The first appointment is for the Parking Authority. May I have a motion and a name?
Madam Chair, if I may be recognized, this is a town manager's appointment. So I've been given the name of Michael Riccio of Andrew Street. Some of you may know him, and he is hereby appointed to the Parking Authority for a term to expire November 2024.
Thank you very much. And let's move on to the library board appointment. Mark, do you do that as well, or do we need to?
No, that's a council appointment.
Okay. May I have a name for
Chair,
the
I'd like to
library
make a
board?
motion to appoint Mrs. Tina Riccio for that position. This is Mike Del Santo.
Yep. Is there a second?
Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other nominees? Call the roll, please, Madam Clerk.
Mary,
Yes.
Pulis,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo. DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietrich,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Reno.
Yes. We're moving on to adjournment. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? If anybody wants to stay on this meeting, I don't know. Well, everybody, thank you so much for participating. Paul, thank you for helping us run the meeting over there. Mr. Town Manager, Town Attorney, thank you all. And we'll see each other. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Here, everybody.
Bye. 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 Bye.